My name is Stacy. The movie that I watched was The Smartest Guys in the Room. It was a deeper look into Enron. It was a documentary to see more in depth of what they did, how they did it, and the effects that it had. And it started off with Ken Lay, who founded Enron in the 80s, and then we had Jeff Skilling, who was hired on with one condition, to have market accounting. Now, this basically allowed for future profits to be accounted for, even if they hadn't occurred yet. And it shows what mark-to-market accounting does. Mark-to-market accounting does is it shows current market value rather than actual book value. So it basically ups their view it shows a difference. There is a difference in their stock market value and their actual book value, which can be completely different, as we learned from Enron, because what they did was raise their stock prices and raised it and raised it and raised it while they went further and further and further into debt. And as that happened, they just kept on trying to find different ways to cover it up, different ways to move money around, different ways to pull the wool over America's eyes and keep them investing in the company so that they would have a high market value. And how they did this, they did some of it through the making of mock companies. And they hired specific people like Lupi to raise the value of Enron in the stock market. Now, Lupi was a complete jack-off, just bad guy, bad dude, the second largest landowner in the state of Colorado. Yay us. And was a complete bad guy, but he was hired to basically raise the stock while hiding the debt. And after he left, it just kept on going. The ball was rolling, everything was going, and then they had big banks. Enron had big banks involved, and such as Merrill Lynch, who bought Nigerian barges and held on to them and then sold them back to Enron. The reason why they did this is it just moved money around. So that was unethical because it was deliberately portraying a gain in finances to meet the quarterly quota, and then they sold the barges back afterwards so that they didn't have to really hold on to it. That's just unethical money practices. They also hired Andy Fasto, and his job was essentially to cover up all of Enron's debts. He did this by making mock companies and just moving the finances around among the different companies. One of the main ones that he did was LJM. And LGM was a financial service that Andy Fastow started, who only invested in Enron stocks and all their subsidiaries. He got 96 big name banks invested in him, and there was as much as $25 million each bank. The movie called these people useful idiots or synergistic corruption. It was just a form of no checks and balances, so it completely was against GAAP and IMA and all these rules and practices because they didn't have the checks and balances systems. It was basically Enron and then the bank and the stock market, the shareholders, it was all in one entity, which is just, again, it's against the checks and balances system. So it completely violated independence and just so many other things. At this time, Arthur Andersen was the auditor for Enron, and they were earning about $1 million a week, and there were emails showing that they knew about LJM and what was going on and how it was working. And it was quoted in the movie as saying that a high school student could figure this out. So it was just ridiculous that nobody questioned it. And then finally, the Enron motto was to ask why, but when Enron was asked why, they literally called the interviewer an asshole. The interviewer said, You're the only financial institution that can't produce a balance sheet or cash flow statement with their earnings. And Skillings was quoted saying, "Thank you very much. We appreciate that, asshole." He said this completely unapologetically, which raised some eyebrows and kind of started some questions getting asked, which was bad for Enron. And then they went to so at this time, Enron was in gas and broadband, and then they moved to electric in the state of California. And they were holding on to that as their saving grace. They were trying to hold on to California as their saving grace financially. What they did there was they started rolling blackouts, so it would raise the price of the electricity there. They had 26 miles of line work there, and they would just have all these blackouts, rolling blackouts, where they'd turn off the electricity in huge sections in the state of California. Then they also at that time would buy energy from the state of California when prices were low, and then sell it back when prices were high, calling it ricochet. Now, after all this, they stole $9 billion from the state of California. In addition to that, the state of California lost $30 billion because of Enron. And after this time, Jeff Skillings stepped down as CEO. He didn't give much of a reason other than he said it was a personal reason, and Kenley took over. This was a flags up. These people were wondering why nobody said anything. It came out of nowhere, so they got suspicious. And that's when everything just really started stumbling down for Enron. And 30,000 employees lost their jobs. Arthur Andersen went down. They completely crumbled as a company. The oldest auditing company in the United States lost 29,000 employees and its name. In addition to that, Enron declared bankruptcy in December, and it lost, the executives were unloading millions of dollars worth of stock. So many people lost their pensions and retirements. It was just unethical from the aspect that they weren't fully honest. They didn't keep their stockholders informed. They were hiding information. They did not maintain independence. And news goes on and on. Now those men are either dead or in jail. Unfortunate to say. So we don't have to worry about Enron anymore. But we do need to continue to watch out for independence and full reporting and maintaining professional standards.